If we all agree that actually means this bottle, okay? We all agree that this is what we call now. We will continue to call it. Oh, let me sip from this. Oh man, this is really cold. Oh, I don't like the plastic from which this has been made. Okay? If we all agree that this is now, then it's okay? Let's talk about branding. Let's talk about advertising. Advertising, the most successful form of propaganda. I found this. How Gucci fell from high fashion to discount rack, okay? This severely disrespects me. I recently bought Gucci shades on a massive discount, and now they're telling me that it's a discount rack object. Holy shit. I am not based and luxury pilled anymore. I own a discount rack item. So, how can Gucci go from something that is ideologically identified with luxury to something which is not? Would be a very interesting conversation that allows us to take a deeper dive into the fact that, well, pretty much all your definitions of value, not human nature. Not your own based objective opinions. It's all kind of brainwashing. We're all just like nonstop, just brainwashed. So pretty much everything you like, you don't really like because you like it, but because you're brainwashed into liking it. You don't really have a personality. Your personality has been carefully tailored to suit an ever-expanding and ever-needing market for consumer goods. You basically are not human. You are a wallet. And funnily enough, you love being a wallet. Well, consciously at least. Subconsciously, you dread your existence. And you try to run away from said alienation and dread by identifying with random objects that you put on your body or decorate your apartment with or that you drive around town. Yes, indeed. But the beautiful thing about all of this is we can talk about it. So let's talk about it.
This is the image that Gucci would like to project.
Gucci doesn't belong in a mall. It belongs in a museum.
I could have my Gucci on. Where you Gucci back row?
Gucci, 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 please.
Gucci is that brand that makes people think they want to live larger than life and be sexy and be adventurous and be unconventional.
But behind the scenes, things have been a bit less glamorous.
Still in shock from Gucci's dramatic slowdown.
Gucci sales falling 20% in Asia.
A steep drop in sales at its flagship Gucci brand.
Clearly, Gucci isn't at the top of its game.
So how did Gucci and the $50 billion conglomerate that owns it fall from high fashion to the discount rack? While Gucci is an icon
because it
of
quite literally
Italian
can.
fashion,
It quite literally can. Luxury is just what we all agree on luxury being. That's it. Luxury is like language. If we all agree that actually means this bottle, okay? We all agree that this is what we call now. We will continue to call it. Oh, let me sip from this. Oh man, this is really cold. Oh, I don't like the plastic from which this has been made. Okay? If we all agree that this is now, then it's okay? If you all agree that I am the great leader of the Gunnar state of Israel, then I am the Gunnar leader of Israel. Well, luxury works in the absolutely same way. There is not anything that is luxurious de facto. Not the diamond, not the gold, not the bling, not the MacBook, not the BMW, not whatever. It is only luxury because we all agree that it is luxury, okay? And then it additionally manipulates our identity of what is luxury through higher prices, which make us compare to prices of other objects and blah, 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 blah. So while that being extremely successful, it is also a potential downfall of the very same pattern that it follows in order to rise itself up, which is, as simply put, if less people start considering you to be a luxury item, you simply cease being a luxury item.
by the French company Kering for the past 2 decades.
Kering is a luxury conglomerate that is controlled by the Pinault family.
Even though it is an established multi-brand luxury group, they have other storied brands like Yves Saint Laurent and Bottega Veneta and Balenciaga. Gucci is really the mothership for the company.
Kering was founded by Francois Pinault, who built the company.
Man, Italians so fucking cucked. Like the French own one of the biggest brands. Oh, Lord.
through acquisitions over several decades. He's now 87, and his son, Francois-Henri, has taken over.
He's well known because
He's now 87.
Jesus Christ, that's his son. God, I'm about to do many ageisms up in this bitch. Oh, Lord.
And his son, Francois-Henri, has taken over.
He's well known because he hangs out quite a lot on the red carpets. His wife is Salma Hayek, the actress and producer.
Now, Kering's big rival is LVMH, the owner of Louis Vuitton and Christian Dior, among others. That company is run by Bernard Arnault. So there's a duopoly in the French fashion world, with LVMH under Arnault on one side and Kering under Pinault on the other. That rivalry really came to a head in the late 90s when Arnault had set his sights on acquiring Gucci for LVMH.
And that was the point when Tom Ford and Domenico De Sole were running Gucci as a public company, and they didn't want Mr. Arnault to have it. And they ended up signing an agreement with Francois Pinault, the father, who was the white knight who came in.
Initially, they bought a 40% stake in Gucci, and eventually they bought the rest of it after a lot of acrimonious moves against LVMH.
During that era, Kering was about the same size as LVMH. In the years since, they've
Thank you very much.
had different trajectories. With savvy deal-making and management, LVMH's value has soared to $450 billion, while Kering's hasn't.
LVMH's market cap nowadays is about 10 times bigger than Kering's. Kering is
And that allows them to quite literally eat the competition. The wider conversation to be had here that we absolutely always have is the game is pre-rigged for you if you have enough capital, right? But that's in the relationship between regular workers who have no capital to start a business or to basically have a decent life versus people who have capital that can use capital as a snowball effect to generate more capital, basically. That's the difference between capital and currency. Capital is money that can make you more money, or things that you can buy that can generate you more money, that you can own that can generate you more money, etc., etc. But this relationship also, Marxists rarely talk about this because we don't want to talk about fucking finance, but unfortunately I fucking study that shit. This also applies to intercorporate relationships, right? That is why a ungoverned market always inherently leads to a monopoly, because while an individual with capital is much more privileged than another individual without capital, a company with a lot of capital is more privileged than a company with less capital. So basically, the bigger you get, the faster you can grow, and the more you can wait for your rivals to basically die out. So in a very fun twist of events, following pure market logic is counterthetical to market logic, because it directly leads to the inability of even businesses, even like capitalist entities, to compete with each other, because they get eaten by whatever is the biggest capitalist entity inside of whatever industry that they're trying to compete in. So yes, what I'm saying basically is the free market is a suicide cult that eventually eats its own children. And even greater conversation on this that we had yesterday is, for example, the introduction of techno-feudalism, where basically the market has commodified everything to such an extent that it has even commodified itself. And now you basically have feudal lords that own vast swaths of the internet, and then they rent out businesses' ability to sell shit on their own platforms for a particular percentage. And sometimes that's like a 50% plus percentage of the actual profit of the business they're trying to sell. I'm talking about Amazon here, and techno-feudalist, as our Greek uncle said. So it's very interesting to see. It's like we always make the argument that capitalism is only good for capitalists, but funnily enough, in the long term, it's also not good for the capitalists, right? In the long term, it's also not good for the majority of the capitalists, because they will be put out of a job. Eventually, they will be eaten up by whatever the bigger fish is. That is why capitalists themselves always want to make sure, ironically, that there is some regulation over the free market. They can protect their position of a lesser competitor in a competitive market, ironically.
is very dependent on Gucci. Basically, about 50% of its sales come from Gucci, but more than 2/3 of operating profit come from Gucci.
So when Gucci is suffering, the whole company is suffering.
At LVMH, it's slightly different. Louis Vuitton generates about a quarter of total sales, but it's about half of total profitability. The fact
There you go. They diversify their portfolio. They just have literally more products to run on, more brand identities to run on. A diverse portfolio means different people will buy your shit. So you always want to sell to the poor, you want to sell to the middle, and you want to sell to the rich. Because if the economy is going down, then the rich will start buying the middle ground, the middle range product. The middle income bracket will start buying what the poors used to buy. And fuck the poors will die starving on the streets. They're not really a marketable demographic, so fuck them, especially in times of crisis. And then when the economy comes back up, as it always goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up in the capitalist mode of production, it all goes back to it. But you always want to diversify your, be it audience for a service or clientele for a product, because that quite literally allows you flexibility as you're attempting to grow in the market. Ironically, the only way for you to actually pull that off is if you have enough money and if you have enough resources to diversify your production. So the more money you have, the more you can diversify your production, and the more you can eat into the profit margins of other companies, eventually cannibalizing them as well. Hence my ironic argument that give it enough time and capitalism will cannibalize even the capitalist. Okay? At one point, if the fucking algorithm can run absolutely everything, they won't even need the boards or the CEO. Like the CEO, ironically, as the definition of a class trader, but also sometimes not a class trader because they very often are given percentage ownership of the company and therefore become an owner, a capitalist, not a like highly professionalized proletarian trader of his own class. Eventually, the CEO will not be necessary because the corporation itself, which is it now becomes an entity of its own, and the market, which is also an entity of its own. That is why I like to call it an inherently inhuman project, because we're not governed even by humans. The humans are only like subcategories of how the market works. What I mean by this is the market for now needs humans to be CEOs. It needs humans to sit on the boards. It needs humans to exploit other humans. And higher management and so on, and the executives, they reap lots of benefits from this. But in the long run, this inhuman process will no longer even need those humans. It will manage itself through algorithm, through tech, etc., etc. Because at the end of the day, the market wants to get rid of as much cost for as much profitability as it can. And humans are always equals cost. But that's where the ironic failing rate of profit theory comes in. And it's like, if, we like to say, the workers can no longer afford to buy shit. And that's why the economy is sometimes going down, right? Very, very, very good argument and a very good point. But very often it doesn't look far enough into the future enough, because at one point, like, the employee will no longer be necessary. So the algorithm will either keep employees only because it understands that people need salaries in order to buy shit, or they'll twist your fucking ankle with the census bullshit, UBI, etc., just so that it can sustain itself by giving some money to everyday people so that they can buy the product, so that it can create the product. And it's fucking, again, inhuman, because at that point, it's like even more alienating and meaninglessness than it is now. Because it will just be, hey, here's some money so that you can consume the stuff we're making so we can make more profit. But how does that contribute to society in any fucking way? That's the point. It doesn't. It only contributes to this arbitrary free hand that, again, we're humanizing it. Free hand of the market. There's no hand. There's no fingers. There's no flesh. There's no secret cabal. Okay? That's the insanity, the main, like, core insanity of capitalism. And it is not humans. Call it code. Call it a self-replicating and self-correcting algorithm. Call it whatever you want. But it's just a completely different, at this point, borderline deity that has direct influence on every single one of our lives, and yet contributes absolutely nothing. The only reason it's giving us anything, handing us out these jobs, these positions, even higher upper management, even percentage ownership, etc., is because it has not found an alternative to our fleshy little fingers operating their factory levers or writing their fucking articles or sending out the fucking corporate email. And it's already started. I mean, read Bullshit Jobs. Fucking brilliant book. And my argument, and partially what is argued in that book as well, is bullshit jobs exist, and they're already probably 50% of all jobs that exist. Complete unnecessary bullshit jobs. If you really wanted to streamline shit, if you really wanted to be a blue-blooded capitalist, you would fire all of these fucking people. 70% of us here in chat would probably not have a fucking job. But it doesn't, because the system needs consumers, and the system pays them so that they can be consumers. I don't know though, like maybe these algorithms will get there at some point, but right now it seems like every time a company replaces admin stuff with AI, chatbots, phone menu shit, etc., the efficiency of the service goes down. Obviously, yeah, we're not there yet. We're absolutely not there yet. But eventually, upper management will be replaced. It absolutely will be replaced. Everybody will become replaceable in a system which is not guided by surplus human happiness, but is guided by surplus profit. It's not only like when I was a baby socialist, it was very much like my main reason why I got into this ideology is because I don't want anybody to fuck me, okay? It was 100% selfish. 100% selfish. My boss gets to take my surplus. Fuck you. Who the fuck are you to take my money? That was why I got in. But I understand, like, as I'm growing, I understand that it's not you just being ripped off. It's you as a species becoming unnecessary. And why? Because of an algorithm that us as a species ourselves have created, manifested, and that it just is eating us now. And more importantly, eating our whole fucking planet. And we're all screaming and nobody can fucking hear. The birds are screaming, the forests are screaming, the fucking oceans are screaming, the fucking cobalt miners over in the Congo. But nobody's hearing because the algorithm is louder than everyone. And because you get Stanley Cups. Good for you.
That LVMH is less dependent on one single brand provides more stability.
Even so, Gucci, and therefore Kering, has had a few successful years, and that was largely down to one man, Alessandro Michele.
In the years that followed the nomination of Alessandro Michele as creative director at Gucci in 2015, the label did really well. They kept putting out hit products.
There was the Marmont bag in 2016, for instance, and the Dionysus bag and the Princetown slippers a year earlier.
The furry slippers really became a hit product. They really resonated well with the younger generations. They were bohemian, they were maximalists, and they were chic. And during that time, the market cap of Kering actually quadrupled. Sales at Gucci more than tripled.
But being a top fashion brand comes with problems.
Finding that right balance in the fashion industry to stay on top and yet have your products be fresh, it's very difficult to hit and it's very difficult to maintain over the long term.
The Fashion Retail List publishes rankings on the world's most fashionable brands, and Gucci has fallen down the rankings.
Since 2022, the performance at Gucci and therefore Kering has really suffered. Sales have missed a number of times and the stock price has really tumbled.
Yeah, and a lot of people say, okay, maybe there's some fashion people who work in the fashion industry here in chat, and I've talked to people who work in the fashion industry that are really up to date with, again, algorithmic thinking. Fashion industry is a perfect example of like aesthetics and selling aesthetics. And one would think, the more creative you are and the more original ideas you create, the higher chance there is for people to buy your thing because they identify with this original new wave of ideas or reinterpretation of all ideas. And that is why they will like the looks, basically, that you're trying to sell them. And that's correct. But what if you're so big and you have so much money and resources available to you as a corporation that you can create 100 variables of styles? What about 1,000? What about 10,000 variables of styles? I'm pretty sure 10,000 different fashion aesthetic variables will satisfy every single consumer's idea of what they want to represent themselves externally, which is basically what they want to wear. And at that point, you're done. You won the game. There's no need for any competition. And that's fucked up in capitalism because it will monopolize, automate, and just fuck all the employees and all even competitors, etc., etc. But what if you use that same argument in a so-called socialist society? And we use this technology, we use this generation, we use all of this creativity and quite literally create 10,000 different variations that are not created unless you order them, so that there's no surplus production, there's no pollution, etc., etc. And absolutely everybody has access to every single imaginable style of clothing at all times without participating in capitalist exploitation while minimizing pollution. using tech to satisfy all fashion styles while minimizing the pain inflicted on the environment. How about that? It's already there. Walmart's already figured out state planning, okay? And Amazon as well. Hyper-algorithmic generation of potential fashion products, for example, which in this case wouldn't be called products. It's all already there. Like the tech is already there. Only it's used exclusively by owners to generate profit, instead by the wider community to increase standards of life. Ba-bam. Ba-bam. But no.
The success of Louis Vuitton has meanwhile helped turn Bernard Arnault into, at times, the richest person in the world, and his was a very different strategy.
So, I mean, in some ways, Louis Vuitton has a more classic image and positioning. LVMH has been at this longer. They are really total pros in this game.
There's a difference between luxury
Is that why AliExpress keeps advertising graphical design t-shirts instead of autism on them? Yeah. Listen, in socialist fashion, there will be a mass distribution of t-shirts that say autism on them, okay? That will be the biggest trend in a socialist state, okay? It's going to be so not ableist, it's going to give birth to autism supremacy. I'm fucking around, man.
and fashion. In fashion, for instance, you're relying on trends, whereas in luxury, you rely on timeless, on heritage products that basically stand the test of time.
The dictatorship of the neurodivergent. There we go, baby. This is what I'm talking about.
That's what differentiates top-tier luxury brands, such as Louis Vuitton and Hermes.
A typical luxury product, for instance, is the Birkin bag by Hermes, which was created in the 1980s. And that is still very much sought after. You know, one single bag can cost more than 10,000 euros.
With some of Michele's products, Gucci may have missed an opportunity.
Thank you, Romka, for the 100 bits as always. Imagine an algorithm that you can use to order Zaza to be grown specifically for you, Eddie Stray. Fuck yeah. And then the massive automated green factories immediately like package and sending through like a highly pressurized underground pipe system, and the Zaza just appears next to you. The only thing it asks you before you order your Zaza is, would you like a cold socialist brewski with that? Yes, sir, I would. Thank you very, very much.
Some of Michele's products, Gucci may have missed an opportunity.
According to company insiders, these products like the furry slippers or the Marmot or the Dionysus, they could have become one of those heritage timeless products, but they didn't. And the mistake was that basically they created many variations of these products. They were overexposed somehow. This was a reflection of the short-termism at Kering, basically trying to maximize sales and profits in the short term.
This is reflected in the company's share price.
Especially when you're trying to sell a product that is supposed to be like easily identifiable as this is the luxury product. But then you give like 10 variations of that product and you can no longer identify the particular aesthetic. And more importantly, other people cannot identify just how expensive your bag is. So you consciously or subconsciously do not buy it because you literally know other people will not know how expensive this thing that I bought is. Because at the end of the day, luxury items are just like a capitalist manner through which we show off our, fancy feathers in order to find a mate, the way we did back in tribal society.
Every dollar of profit that LVMH is expected to make,
Just instead back then, you need to be a really good fucking hunter and kill a fucking jaguar and then have feathers and shit. Nowadays, you just need to make a lot of money and literally buy a jaguar car. Different societies, different ways of mimicking success to a potential mate or whatever the fuck.
investors give it about $24 of value. For every dollar of...
Speaking of value and pretending that you're successful, did you know that on Twitch, there is one way to define just how successful you are? And that, for a Twitch streamer, is how many subscribers he has. But for you, the Twitch chatter, is if they are a subscriber or not.
Profit at Kering, they only give it about $15. That's because they're more optimistic about LVMH's future business prospects, because it isn't quite as vulnerable to the whims of fashion.
So Pinault knows that Gucci basically needs to play more in the most exclusive luxury space. So in February, at the annual results, he says they're trying to basically lift the brand and put it in the same category as some of its peers like Hermes, Chanel, or Louis Vuitton. But the thing is, he's been saying that since 2006.
Some observers place the blame on Pinault himself.
At LVMH, for the most critical and most important decisions, They're taken by Bernard Arnault himself. At Kering, the management style is slightly different. People have described him as being more hands-off, as being a little bit more laissez-faire, and as giving the brands more autonomy.
Critics cite the 2022 Balenciaga scandal as evidence of this. The brand had to apologize after one of its ad campaigns was accused of sexualizing children. Still, in 2023, Pinault found another reason to lose focus.
Remember this chick? Remember when she was standing up for the oppressed and shit? Remember that? Greta actually elevated herself in a class-conscious person, and we cannot see a fucking mention of Greta anywhere in mainstream media because she became a fucking poor, basically class-conscious anti-imperialist. But Malala didn't, and now she hangs with the Gucci owner and Oprah. Oh man, fucking shoot your heroes, man.
Focus.
In 2023, the Pinault family bought a majority stake in Creative Artists Agency. According to some luxury observers, that was seen as a distraction for François-Henri Pinault.
Gucci parted ways with Michele in 2022 over a difference in creative vision.
And a few months later, in early 2023, they named a new designer, Sabato De Sarno. He was a relatively unknown figure from Valentino.
At first, his design seemed more staid than Michele's, playing into Pinault's plan to elevate the brand.
So Pinault wants Gucci, basically, to become a true luxury player. However, making that pivot takes time. It's a marathon at the end of the day. It's not a sprint.
Yeah, everything I said previously. So Gucci was more like short-term profit-driven, I guess, and lost the bigger picture of how you maintain yourself in the market. Let's look at a different brand, though, from China. Firewater. If you motherfuckers rank this shit, I have one of these. Well, let me start the video and let me have a shot with you. This shit tastes like...